These are difficult decisions for schools for sure, but there are some going against the recommendations of the health districts. Nampa Christian Schools, for example. Yesterday, we told you about their plan to return to in-person learning in less than 2 weeks with just the recommendation of masks for middle and high school students. No mandate, just encouraging to do it. One concerned family says they tried to convince the schools to require masks based on scientific evidence that they reduce the risk of COVID transmission. Well, no luck. And as they tell our Joe Paris, they had to make a difficult decision to try and keep their family healthy.
The decision wasn't going to leave our children and our family in the safest environment possible.
When Sean Nixon learned that Nampa Christian schools were set to return to in-person learning, he knew his family would have to make tough decisions. This past spring, Nampa Christian schools decided to return to school to finish the year with new COVID guidelines. Nixon says in practice, specifically with masks and social distance, it wasn't what he had hoped.
What we witnessed was none of that going on. Our kids would come home and say that they were the only ones in school wearing masks, or a few kids, a few teachers.
So he reached out to administrators to voice his concern.
It was 3 weeks, they would do their best they could, and that they would come up with a plan for the fall.
Fast forward through the summer, Nixon says the COVID plan that Nampa Christian Schools sent to parents for the fall was virtually the same one he saw in the spring. Masks would not be mandated in school, only recommended. And as someone who works in the healthcare field, Nixon says he wanted to explain to the school board why masks are so important. That included sending administrators videos of local leaders from St. Alphonsus and St. Luke's presenting to other local schools. Nixon says the response to him was this YouTube video from Michigan that claims to debunk effectiveness of wearing masks and also presents health risks associated with wearing a mask.
And it resulted in a conversation saying that if we couldn't wholeheartedly stand behind the decision that the school board made, then we should possibly seek other educational opportunities for our children. Just felt like every question we asked was pushed back with, "That's your opinion, that's not scientifically based," and the board's made a decision.
So Nixon and his family had to make their own decision.
We made the very difficult decision to remove our kids after more than 12 years. There was a lot of tears in our house between my wife and my kids and myself in this loss.
Nampa Christian School sent out this FAQ page that details their COVID plan. Nixon says even within that, he found problems.
What's interesting, if you look in the FAQ, they state and have a hyperlink to Southwest District Health, the Association for Pediatrics, and the CDC. However, if you go to those websites and look at the recommendations, they're not following all of the recommendations.
In response to questions about Nampa Christian School's return to school plan, KTVB was sent this statement detailing in part the recommendation and encouragement of masks for middle school and high school students, as well as their plan to social distance. Nixon says for him, trying to get the school to change their policies was simply about keeping the community at school and beyond it healthy.
My worry is for the community, for those kids and families that are going to get sick, because we know that many people get the virus and resolve very easily, but we also know that people die very suddenly from it.
Okay, so Joe, you mentioned the response from Nampa Christian Schools wasn't a very in-depth one, but did they address the liability waiver?
They did. They had this explanation for us, Brian, and I'll read it verbatim. They said, quote, "NCS continues to partner with families for the education and discipleship of their children. In support of that, parents are signing a partnership agreement to acknowledge their role in closely monitoring their children's health, and a waiver similar to those used by other schools and the Idaho High School Activities Association." Again, Brian, as we mentioned during our report last night, this is not unique to Nampa Christian Schools. We mentioned, for example, Caldwell High School is having their student athletes and parents sign a waiver to return as well.
Meaning if you get sick, it's not on us, it's completely on you. I get it. All right, thank you, Joe.